This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1341 of Horse Tip Daily, your almost everyday morsel of helpful hints, useful facts, and practical techniques for horse folks. Greetings, Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip features Karen Isberg from Kentucky Performance Products, and she explains what electrolytes are, what they do, and why different formulas are required for different horses. Today's tip is brought to you by the HRN Auditors. Learn how you can become an auditor by going to horsetipdaily.com and clicking on the Become an Auditor button. And now, on with our tip. So I'm so happy to have Karen Isberg from Kentucky Performance Products here on Horse Tip Daily. I haven't had you on the show in ages, Karen.
No, I know. It's been a while. I'm so excited. I love coming on this show, and I love talking to you.
Yeah, and the regular listeners of Horse Tip Daily get to hear your voice because I keep stealing the tips that you do over on the dressage show and putting them on this one.
Glenn told me he was doing that.
Yes, I do.
That's good.
I do that a lot.
Yeah,
Well,
I think you should, recycle as much as you can.
Well, they're so informative. I don't want them to go to the waste that, let's say you're a reiner and you don't listen to the dressage show. Well, I still want you to get this information, so that's what I do.
Well, exactly. And, when it comes to feeding a horses and supplementing horses, I mean, for the most part, a horse is a horse. And the supplements can be used between disciplines. I mean, there's some instances where you would have something that's very specific to a discipline, but for the most part, a targeted supplement is going to help a problem that a reiner has, that a jumper has, that,
that's true.
A dressage horse has.
And speaking of which, that's our topic for today. Today, we're talking about electrolytes. We're going to go over the basics of what they are and how they got formulated and who needs what and when and why and where. So it's a lot to cover in a short period of time. And what prompted this conversation is I was over on KPP USA because I had to order some more Elevate powder for PT Scooter, our short fat pony.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And he lives on a dry lot, so he gets Elevate because he needs his vitamin E. And I noticed on there, I said, wait a minute. You have Summer Gains. I'm familiar with Summer Gains. Hit the buy button. That's your electrolyte formula. But you also have Enduramax, which I was curious about because I also do endurance. So we're going to start this conversation with what are electrolytes and what do they do?
Okay, well, we can make this real simple. Electrolytes are a group of minerals that perform certain critical functions in the horse's body. So the main electrolytes are sodium, potassium, chloride, and magnesium. So what electrolytes do, short and sweet, is they regulate nerve and muscle functions by carrying electrical impulses between the cells. And they also are critical in maintaining fluid balance by stimulating the thirst response. So when a horse doesn't have the right electrolytes in the proper ratios, you get fatigue, muscle cramping, muscle weakness, tying up, and then there's a condition in horses called thumps. It's like hiccups, but it's not hiccups. Also, if you don't have enough electrolytes, your horse can become dehydrated. And that happens because the electrolytes stimulate the thirst response. So even if your horse has minor dehydration, this nasty cycle starts where the horse doesn't feel thirsty. And then they get more dehydrated, and then they feel even less thirsty, and then they get more dehydrated until they're finally just not drinking at all. And at that point, you can have a problem with colic or other life-threatening conditions. So electrolytes are extremely important in fluid balance and muscle and nerve function.
Now, one of the words that you used in there, in that little piece, caught my attention, in the right balance. So the first thing everybody thinks of is, well, why don't I just feed my horse salt? Everybody has a salt brick for their horse. Why am I feeding electrolytes and not just dumping a handful of salt in their feed every day?
Exactly. And so there's a couple of reasons why. So electrolytes need to be fed in the proper ratio. And that ratio is 1 part potassium, 2 parts sodium, 4 parts chloride. And this is one reason why people kind of equate salt with electrolytes. So salt does contain two electrolytes, sodium and chloride. The problem is it's missing the potassium and it's missing the magnesium. And if you look at, horses get a certain amount of electrolytes from what they eat. So magnesium is generally adequate in a good legume hay, like alfalfa hay. But in lush pasture, really lush spring pasture in particular, and in grass hays, there can be a deficiency in magnesium. Most forages will provide enough potassium, but they're deficient in sodium and only have a marginal amount of chloride. And fortified feeds have some electrolytes, but not enough when the demand increases. So if you have a horse that's just hanging out in the field, not sweating very much, they can meet their electrolyte recommendations if they have a good quality hay, a balanced vitamin and mineral supplement, and access to a salt block. Because on that diet, they're taking in enough electrolytes. But once they start sweating a lot, or they start working hard where they're sweating even more, then they can no longer replenish their electrolytes fast enough through their diet. They just don't get enough of them.
So their body is leaching it out, sweating it out, peeing and pooping it out faster than they can consume it because it's available in that natural diet in tiny forms. And that kind of makes sense because your average feral horse, wild horse, he's not doing a whole bunch of sweating. He's hanging out for the most part, occasionally running away from something. That would kind of make sense that their bodies evolved to survive quite happily that way. But then we add into the equation the human being who insists upon doing trot sets in June or long trail rides in September in the South, and sweating occurs.
Yep. And then they lose more electrolytes than they can possibly replenish. And the harder they work, and the harder they work in a hotter environment, and the more they sweat, the more electrolytes they lose. So these horses that are working really hard, your upper level event horses and your race horses, there's no way that they can replace the electrolytes in just a regular diet. And that's one reason why horses have actually the only nutrient that horses will seek out is salt. So that's why we recommend that you always have just a plain white salt block out, because if a horse needs extra sodium and chloride, he'll go find it.
There we go.
And sodium and chloride, of course, in that 2-to-1 ratio, and that's what salt is. So that works out well for horses.
So,
and they look for it.
Lots of different horses have lots of different jobs. And I know Kentucky Performance prides itself on creating supplements that address an issue. It's not just willy-nilly. So there's got to be a reason there are two different kinds of electrolyte formulas.
Well, there is a reason why there's two, and you hit on it. Different horses doing different kinds of exercise deplete their electrolyte stores differently. So we have two different types of electrolytes. We have Summer Games electrolyte, which was developed as a multi-purpose electrolyte that can be used by most horses, like from your weekend warrior, that guy that's going to go out and do his 3-mile trail ride on Saturday, to a highly competitive Olympic athlete can use Summer Games electrolyte. It's concentrated, so it's easy to adjust the amount that you feed. So if you have a horse that doesn't need a lot, you can feed them a half a scoop to a scoop. And if you have a horse that's working really hard, you can feed up to 4 scoops a day. Summer Games is unique because it closely mimics the composition of equine sweat. So it not only replaces those essential electrolytes that we talked about in the proper ratios, but it also replaces some of the minerals that we know are also lost in sweating. So especially your upper level horses, your horses that are working really hard, to lose some trace minerals. In Duramax that you talked about before, that was formulated specifically for endurance horses. So those horses sweat a whole lot more, but they sweat a whole lot more over a long period of time. And we have found through our research that during these long rides, they lose a lot more calcium and magnesium than horses that just sweat for shorter periods of time. So the Enduramax was formulated with an extra calcium and extra magnesium in a highly available form to replace that on these horses that are doing this long, slow work. And that's the basic difference between the two.
So for a horse that sweats a lot for a long time, he's going to be an Enduramax candidate. And for everyone else that does a lot of sweating in the summertime or in the wintertime, then the Summer Games is going to be the way to go. Now, a lot of people have opinions on how to feed electrolytes. Do they go in the water bucket? Do they go in the feed? Give me the lowdown.
Well, we only recommend that you put electrolytes in the feed. The reason why you wouldn't want to put Summer Games or Enduramax in a water bucket is because it not only has some electrolytes in it, but it also has the trace minerals in it. And they don't dissolve in water. And oftentimes the electrolytes will not completely dissolve in water. So if you put it in a water bucket, it's going to sink to the bottom. And your horse is going to drink that water bucket, and you're really not going to know how much electrolyte they got. But if you put it on the feed and mix it in, the horse will eat it, and you'll know that they got it all. Both of our electrolytes have a paste form, which has Nalox in it, which is a stomach buffer. So if you are in a situation where you really need to make sure they get it, and it's a stressful situation where you're concerned that your horse might also get an upset stomach, then you can give them the Summer Games in paste form or the Enduramax Plus in paste form. And a lot of people, when they're doing a ride, an endurance ride, they will use the paste, the tube of paste, because it's easier for them to carry along. They can give it to them at the vet checks. It has that stomach buffer in it, so that, you know, that keeps that horse's GI tract feeling good as they go down the trail.
Awesome. So
we don't
put it in.
We don't recommend you put it in the water.
Make sure your horse has plenty of fresh water, because he's going to want to have something to drink.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
And if you're worried about your horse not wanting to eat his electrolytes in his feed, and you have the paste to do it that way. So that's been very interesting. I didn't know that about horses who sweat for extended periods of time. So now I'm going to have to go and reevaluate my little bucket of Summer Games out there. And that's the other reason I was on kppusa.com, because I needed to restock the pantry.
Well, and you can feed electrolytes in the winter too, to help your horse keep drinking. So, a half to an ounce of electrolyte a day will keep your horse drinking in the winter. Did I say in the winter or the summer? I can't.
You said winter.
I think I might have just said that wrong. In the winter. I did say winter. Okay.
Yes.
And then, if you're concerned or if you're confused about how much Summer Games to feed your horse, you can go to our website and you can click on the product page, and then you can click on Summer Games, and you go to the servings tab, and we have a little chart on there that tells you how hard your horse is working, how much they're sweating, and then you take whether it's light, medium, or hard work, and then you can go to another chart, and that'll tell you how much Summer Games you need to feed.
Oh,
so we kind of try to help take the guesswork out of it.
Dang, KPP, you guys think of everything. So it's kppusa.com. And if you're the sort of person who likes to talk to an intelligent and well-informed human being to answer your questions, you'll find the toll-free phone number there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can call us.
There we go. Well,
I'll talk to anybody on the phone.
You talk to anybody.
I'll talk to anybody about horses on the phone. I just okay, tell me about your horse.
There we go.
I mean, I most of my customer service phone calls last a half an hour, because once, then we start talking. Oh, what kind of horse do you have? Oh, what kind of horse do you have? And then we start talking. I had one like that. And I don't get off the phone.
There we go. There we go. Well, thank you very much, Karen Isberg, for helping us sort out the do's, don'ts, pluses, minuses, and actual fact of electrolytes.
We have lots of articles on our website too. So if you have questions about electrolytes or anything else, you can go to our website and type your word or your question into the search bar, and hopefully you'll get some nice articles that'll help you answer those questions.
Perfect.
Hi, this is Gina Moronic from Wisconsin, and I am an official Horse Radio Network auditor, something I'm really proud to do and to be a part of in a small way, because it's something that I get a lot of information from. The Horse Radio Network and the convenience of the downloadable podcasts means that I can improve my horsemanship skills, my riding skills, or just really enjoy listening to friendly, informative programming whenever I'm driving to work or working on chores or at the barn even. So I hope you find it as enjoyable as I do. If you do, go to horseradionetwork.com and click on the banner to become a Horse Radio Network auditor. For as little as $1 a month, you can be involved in this great thing too and keep it going. Thanks.
that about wraps it up for today. Make sure to have all of your favorite Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go by downloading the free Horse Radio Network app for your iPhone or Android. Just go to your app store and download it today. It's free and easy to use. Help friends who are less tech savvy than you are download it too. They'll thank you later. This is Coach Jen, and I will be back again soon with another tip. So until then, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements made by guests on the Horse Tip Daily. Please use your own judgment when listening to the tips on this show.